There is medication I could have gave him, but it was more than my paycheck. There's no way I could afford it. So I had to make that really, really tough decision. I had to have him put down. And that was... I've had to do that with a lot of cats, but none of them bothered me like this one. This cat, he was special. He was my angel. And he was my best friend for 11 years. And that was the hardest thing I ever had to do. But that was kinda the last straw for my body, I guess. Because things started going downhill for me from there, physically. I got to the point where I felt like I wasn't getting enough sleep. And it didn't matter whether I slept for 8 hours or 18 hours, it didn't matter. I was always tired, always feeling like sleeping. And that was the first symptom that I had. And then the headaches started, really bad headaches. I've never had headaches in my life. Back in my drinking days, I never even got hangovers. I would just stay drunk longer than everybody else. It took me longer to sober up. I never got hangovers. The only time I would ever get a headache is if I had too much coffee in one day, and then the next day I'd go into caffeine withdrawal. And that's the only time I ever got a headache, so it just really bothered me. And I'll tell you, it was pain I've never felt before. And even with my back, my spinal issues, it was never pain like this. So those of you who suffer from migraines, I don't know how you manage. I don't know. I don't have now like I used to. I still get them occasionally, but nothing like that. Nothing like it was at the beginning. So I sympathize with you. I can't imagine how you function like that. But like I say, thankfully I was still off work at that time. So I had time to actually deal with things. And kind of something else I wanted to talk about, I don't remember now. Probably forgetting something. But I was sitting at the computer one day. I had to use the washroom. I had to do a sit down. I'll put it politely. I was doing something, I can't remember what it was. I wanted to finish it up first. And the washroom's upstairs, so you know, it's a little ways away. But I wanted to finish what I was doing. And it just got to the point where I have to go. It became urgent. And I'll try not to be too gross here, but I stood up and I was like, uh-oh. And I just... How can I put this? At any point in time in your life, if you've ever had diarrhea, you know how you're doing those little baby steps trying to hold it? I was kind of doing that. I guess that's the best way to put it. And I couldn't hold it. It wanted out. That has never happened to me also. Never in my life. Never. I'll leave that part out. So at this point, okay, something's not right with me. Something is going on. I don't know what it is. And my neck, like, if you do this, I don't know what it's like for other people, but when I do that, I hear gravel. It's like my neck is full of gravel. I hear snap, crackle, pop. It's kind of like cracking your knuckles, but it's constant. It doesn't go away. And that, just doing that causes me pain. But I can't do anything. Like, if I'm working on the monster, I'm laying underneath it, I can't hold my head up. You've seen in my project videos, I have to put like a pillow or something, not pillow, but something behind my head that rests my head. I can't hold my head up. My neck muscles will not allow that. It gets my head gets really, really heavy, and it gets very, very painful to try to do that. So all these things, something's wrong. So I got to the doctor, and they checked me. Couldn't find anything wrong. At this point, I'm back to work now, and I'm having issues at work. Same issues. I don't have any energy, right? And the longer I'm working, you know, the less I'm able to do my job. And it got to the point where I started missing time. I'd go in, like, I wouldn't call in sick because I'm feeling alright until I start working. And that's when everything gradually starts building up again. And there were nights where I had to leave at lunch. I couldn't go on. And I kept going back to I didn't have a family doctor at that time. I had to go to the emergency, so I always a different doctor every time. And I had one finally that checked me for, it checked my B12, checked for diabetes. Diabetes is something that runs in our family. My mother and I are the only two that haven't been affected by it. Everybody else, you know, to different degrees. Checked me for that. Checked me for MS. Checked me for lupus. Checked for something else. Something that shares the same symptoms. I can't remember what that was now. But nothing. I tested negative for all of that. Couldn't figure out what was wrong. So, back to work. It just kept happening. And the one manager I had at a time, he just, I don't know. I think he saw it as I'm making illnesses up so I could get off work early or something. I can't remember how he put it, but it pissed me off. He said, you're digging yourself a hole you're not going to be able to get out of. I said, I'm not digging anything. Someone else is digging it for me. But finally, one of the doctors finally diagnosed me with fibromyalgia. Now, fibromyalgia, you can't be tested for it. There is no clinical test that definitively says that's what you've got. It is diagnosed by symptoms. Now, problem is, it shares a lot of symptoms with other illnesses, so they test for those first, like MS and lupus. They test for those. Those you can test for. Fibromyalgia you can't test for. It is diagnosed by symptoms. And basically, process of elimination, you don't have all these others, then that's what you got, right? This is crazy. So finally I had something to go with. And the funny thing is, the store manager, not the night manager I was talking about, but the store manager, she understood. She knows what fibromyalgia is. She knows somebody with it. She understands it. She told me more about it than the doctor did. So I'm thinking, okay, there's a lot more to know about this than, you know, what I'm understanding here. So I get on the internet and I start searching. And the actual cause is unknown, but there are a number of things that seem to cause it. Not cause it, but contribute to it, contribute to the onset of it. And the ones that stand out the most is stress. That's always there. A recent surgery, a major loss in your life, my cat, my 11-year-old friend, Angel, a recent change in your life. I moved from the trailer into this guy's basement. A recent illness, the worst flu I've ever experienced. It seems to me there was something else. But either way, every one of those happened within that 1 month period. And then the next month, that's when my symptoms started. So everything just kind of came together at once. And my body didn't like that, apparently. So now I've got this crap. What do I do now? So kept going to work, kept doing what I could do, and I'm still hanging out with my friend, with his kids, still taking pictures. And it got to the point where I realized, I'm not gonna be able to use this camera. If I'm just taking pictures, it's not a problem, but getting video of the boys, it's not gonna work with this camera. So I upgraded. The place I got my first Fuji, they take trade-ins. I went in to look and see what the options were, and they said they take trade-ins. So if I take my old camera in, I'll get a certain amount of money back, towards this new camera. So I bought a new one, another FujiFilm, another FinePix S9000, and this one was pretty much $1,000. I don't remember how much money I got back. Oh, excuse me, from my first camera, but it brought the price down a lot. Same setup basically. It's the same style of camera. Still a bridge camera. Still 480p maximum. But the improvement is it's still manual zoom. It didn't have digital zoom on this one. You zoom by turning the lens. I think, if I remember correct. Yes. And you could zoom. Once you start recording, you can still zoom. You can still change the zoom level. And the audio focus. The autofocus would work while it's zooming. It would lose focus when you zoom, but it would quickly catch up. It was a little slow, but it would catch up. So it was so much better. It was a huge improvement. So at this point, I was getting quite a collection of pictures and videos and that, and I started coming up with an organization system, filing system, sorted by date. No keywords or anything. If there's anything specific I'm looking for, then I'm not gonna find it. Which issue I have now. Hindsight, right? But in order of date and the camera that I used to take them. So I got looking at all these, and when photography switched over from film to digital, terminology tended to change a little bit. So originally, you take a picture, it's called a photograph, which is basically, I think it's Greek or Latin for light drawing. I think that's what it was. Photo being light and graph being drawing, something like that. Paint, I can't remember. So basically painting with light, drawing with light, whatever it was. That's what photograph means. That's where the term photography comes from. So when it switched over to digital, terminology became image capture. no longer a photograph, it's an image capture. So I got looking at all these. So basically, an image capture is a moment in time. It's a timestamp. This image happened at this particular time, or this particular point in time. So that's kind of where I came up with the term time capturer. That's the title I gave myself. That's how I got that title. I'm capturing moments in time. Kids on the school bus yelling at me. I heard a little bit of what he said. I know who that'll be. That'll be the kid that lives up on the hill. Every time they go by, he yells at me. He knows who I am. So that's where I got the title The Time Capturer. I'm capturing moments in time. And it just kind of stuck. I liked it. It stuck. That's what I go by now. So, a little bit more time went on. And this person whose basement I'm sharing turned out to be not such a nice person after all. And I wasn't enjoying living in his basement anymore. So my friend with the boys, his wife suggested moving in with them. Immediately I said no, because I have had issues living with people in the past. I have a friend that's without a place. He comes to live with me till he finds a place. It never works out because he's eating my food, not replacing it. That's fine, that's expected. He's not looking for a place. So, okay, you're only supposed to be... I love living alone. I've always loved living alone. I don't like living with other people. I'm independent, do my own thing. I don't have to answer to anybody. Do what I want, go where I want, when I want, any time of day. Nobody to answer to. So, he's only supposed to be there temporarily till he finds a place, but he's not looking for a place. So that gets to be a burden for me very, very quickly. And this is a good friend, okay? He said to me, I can put this without swearing, you can be an a-hole at times, you know that? And I said, yes, I know. So what I think is happening was, it's my space, okay? Somebody is invading my space. It's okay for a period. But if you overstay your welcome, it really, really irritates me. I think that's what the issue is. It's got nothing to do with the person themselves. He's a great guy. I got no issues with him whatsoever, but he's invading my space. I think that's what it is. So, she said to me, she says, well, just, you know, spend some time here to see how things work out. So that's what I started doing. From March, I think, March to June, I was spending more and more time there, sleeping on the couch, whatever. And by June, everything just kind of came into place, I guess. The kids loved having me there. They wanted me to move in. She wanted me to move in. I'm not sure about Daddy. He said he's okay with it, but I don't know, everything seemed to be... We had arguments, you know, we butted heads a few times. Mostly because of his arrogance, but, you know, it's not all him. I know that. But everything seemed to be fine, right? So after that period of time, I decided, you know, I'm paying rent at this other place. No, I'm not doing anything there anymore. So I might as well move in. It's working out. But see, what I think the difference is, I'm now living in someone else's space. So I think that's why. It's not that I'm not compatible with the other people that were living with me. It's my space. So now, I'm moving into somebody else's space. It's a completely different situation, and everything was working out well. And my illness was getting worse, and I was actually sort of kind of almost afraid to live on my own because of it. So I said to her, says, you know what? I said, I'm spending all my time here anyways. What's the point of paying rent at a place I'm not using? I could be giving you guys that money, right? So that's how I moved in with them. I've been with them ever since. That was 2006. June 2006 is when I moved in. And things were going good. They don't have a car. They weren't able to drive or go anywhere, really, without someone taking them. So I started taking them out to the conservation area. So we're now in my zone. I was heavily into nature photography. Started taking pictures of the boys, video, whatever. So I took their dad out there one day first. Kids were in school, and I don't know if it was a day we had off work or whatever, but we were out there for a while, and he's catching snakes and that. And we decided it's time to introduce the boys to the conservation area. So took them out there. Instantly loved it. And we explored. We walked the trails first. First time we were there, we just kind of walked the trails, did some exploring, and then they discovered the snakes at the pond, and that was it. That was their interest. And that became our destination. There were a few other places. We stopped. There's not abandoned, but a closed bridge. The bridge had been replaced, but it was left there, kind of like a walk bridge, I guess. And we'd go down the river underneath there. We'd go down to the park, whatever. So originally, when we started going to the conservation area, the boys were posing for pictures. That's what they're used to with their dad. Their dad always got them to pose. So I did a little bit of that. It wasn't a lot of fun. I was having more fun just following what they were doing. So we tried an official photo shoot, which the boys got paid for, by the way. It was planned. And I went down to the park and just kind of scoped out the area, kind of got ideas of, you know, where I wanted to get pictures and that. And next day we went down there and did the boys individually. Did Ken first. Ken was 7 at the time. He did really good. He did exactly what I asked him to do. Problem is, he just wasn't into it. He just wanted to play. He wanted to be with his brother. And I saw that, you know, every once in a while I'd see him look over to see what his brother's doing and that. So I knew he wanted to be with, so we cut that one short. And then it was Zach's turn, and Zach did everything I wanted and volunteered a lot of his own poses, a lot. We got a lot more pictures of Zach than I did of Ken. But the best part of that whole thing, it wasn't me. I didn't like the posing. Because it's obvious, some of it's obvious, some of it's forced. You can tell it's forced. But I enjoyed it. It really surprised me that I was able to do it. Because like I said, I've never taken pictures of people before. And then all of a sudden here I am doing it. And taking pictures of kids is a whole lot different than adults. I've discovered that. Completely different animal. But I just decided, it's like, you know, I'm having more fun just following them around and just getting pictures of them being themselves. And that's just kind of how my photography developed. It's like, ignore me, pretend I'm not here. Just do what you're doing, I'll keep up with you, whatever. And it was really difficult for their dad to understand that, because he's used to he's used to, you know, getting them to pose, and he just automatically assumed that's what I wanted. No, I don't. And like, if you've watched those videos from the past, the last year or year before, whatever it was, you can hear him in the videos telling them to look at the camera or stop for me or something. It's like, no, let them be. That's not what I'm doing. But that's it. Like, my studio, like I said, is the outdoors. Nature is my thing. And taking those boys into that situation, it was, and they blended in with it perfectly. They were right into nature. They loved catching snakes and frogs. They loved the bugs. It was perfect. They just blend together, just perfect harmony. And it was a completely, if it was something different, a different situation where it wasn't the conservation area, I don't know if it would have worked out as well as it did. But for the first time in my life, I found something I was good at. Something I could actually do where I felt I had worth. And it went on for a few years, not as long as I'd like to, but you know, the boys got older and they got more interested in their video games, or they wanted to spend time with their friends or whatever. They'd rather spend time with their friends than me. It happens, right? I was kind of hard because I didn't want that time to end. I don't know how to put it. That was probably the peak of my life. The first time, the only time I've ever found anything I'm good at. And I didn't want it to end. But my illness was getting worse, and it was getting harder and harder to keep up with them. At some point, things at work were getting worse, and we were outside one day. I think it was either lunch or break, I don't remember which. But we were just about to head back in. I'm leaning back against the door, and all of a sudden my legs just gave out. Just quit. Just shut down. Down I went. Whacked my arm off the door handle, I think it was. Scared the crap out of me. Scared everybody else. Nobody knew what was going on. So I was done for that night. Back to the hospital. Not a clue. And it kept happening. You know, I couldn't use ladders. It was too dangerous to use ladders. I couldn't carry anything heavy. You know, I would just, all of a sudden my body would just shut. It's not just my legs, like my whole body would just shut down. And I've caught that on video once, and I actually showed it. But that's what happens. I call them power failures, just like someone flicking a switch and turning me off. Down I go. And it doesn't last long, but the effects of it can last for hours. It takes a long time to recover from it. But it's like I'm paralyzed. I can't move. And like I say, it only lasts a short period. A minute, 2 minutes. And then things gradually start coming back to life. But it got too dangerous. And the store manager, like I said, she understood, and she got to talk to my night manager, and I started driving the Walmart scooter around, making sure everything has price tags, making sure everything has the proper price on it. There's different things. They have these things, they call them brake packs. You get, when you're stocking the shelves, you got a case of stuff that you put up. This is like individual things. It's called point of sale. When you buy something, the computer automatically orders another one to replace it. And you know, as they come in, if you get a full case of them, then it'll send the whole case. But if it's smaller items, then they're sent individually, right? Or maybe a smaller package or something. So they come in this box. It's not all one product. It's mixed individual items. And so I was carrying that around with me on the scooter and just stocking, you know, filling in what's missing from the shelves and that. And basically the easiest jobs they could give me. And even that got to be too much. I was leaving at lunchtime. A lot of times I didn't want to go home and wake everybody up, so I'd go out to conservation area. I'd sit there in the parking lot and just enjoy the peace or whatever. Sometimes once I started feeling a little bit better, I'd go for a bit of a walk or something. But it just got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore. And the store manager told me one day, he says she's getting a message from higher up that if I'm not, because Walmart's all about numbers. You get the number of people that are working versus the number of skids that get processed, and they use that to evaluate how, you know, productivity is going. It's all about the numbers. And apparently if somebody leaves, you know, early, it messes up their numbers or something. I don't remember. But I don't know. But either way, the manager told me that she's received word that if I keep leaving at lunchtime, then they're going to drop me down to part-time. And I knew, you know, the way things were going, it was getting worse and worse and worse. I knew that I was going to have to quit. I didn't have a future anymore with Walmart. And I still had a few payments left on my car. I couldn't just quit. I wouldn't be able to make my payments. And like I said, loan was for $4,000, car was $2,000, car's long paid for. I got 3 payments left, just paying the extra. I could lose my car with those 3 payments, right? So I wanted to use my profit sharing for that. And if I drop down to part-time, I won't get that profit sharing anymore. So, you know, we talked about it for a bit, and we came to agreement the best thing for me to do is quit. And I was on welfare for a year. I applied for, I couldn't apply for anything right away. I had to get unemployment first. Unemployment benefits. And once that finished up, then I applied for ODSP. By this time I finally had a family doctor. Finally. He was awesome. He understands fibromyalgia. He knows everything about it. He understands what I'm going through. Constantly adjusting or changing my medication, trying to keep up with it and that. He was awesome. And he filled all the paperwork out for me for applying for ODSP, which is Ontario Disability Support Program. But it takes time. So once my unemployment ran out, I had to go on welfare while I was waiting for ODSP. I had to go back to welfare again. I hated that. But applied for ODSP, everything was good, and I was rejected. So the funny thing about ODSP is, a lawyer told me 98% of the cases that get rejected were probably never even looked at. He says they never should have been rejected in the first place. He figures it's just the government's way of saying, well, if I reject them, maybe they won't apply again, we won't have to pay them, right? But either way. So I had to appeal. I had an awesome lawyer. The adjudicator that I dealt with was awesome. Again, the doctor was awesome. So I won my appeal. Now, the thing with ODSP, well, government income, you can't have 2 sources of government income. So when you apply for ODSP, your ODSP benefits begin the day you apply. Okay? And if you're rejected or whatever and you appeal, it continues on. You don't get that money, but it's accumulating. So if you win your appeal and you're granted ODSP, then you get all that money from the time that you applied for it. It doesn't start when you get accepted, it starts from when you apply and or appeal. So I got all this lump sum money waiting for me, and because I can't have two government incomes at the same time, I had to pay back welfare, which is fine. I had no problem with that. So I had enough left over. At some point, I think within 6 months of buying my Lumina, the water pump went, and my engine overheated, which melted my head gasket. So I was constantly having to change my engine coolant because I was getting oil in it, and that doesn't really protect too much when that happens. Keeps everything lubricated, but you know. So when I got this lump sum, the first thing I did was I got a new engine for my car. Not new, but a used one. It was cheaper to get a used motor than to replace the head gasket. Go figure. So that's what I did. And then I still had money left over after that. And I've been on ODSP ever since. Originally it was temporary, it was for a year, because apparently Fibromyalgia might go away. So, applied again, no problem. Another year, applied again, no problem. My lawyer told them, I says, "Oh, this is obviously not going away, make it permanent." So finally, they said it was temporary, but you know, after that year, I get a letter in the mail stating, you know, my benefits are going to expire, I need to reapply. Well, that last time I never got that letter. I never got the notice that, you know, it's going to expire, so they made it permanent. Which is good because, you know, my illness gets worse every year. You know. But it's just that time period, you know, I don't remember at what point I started getting ODSP, at what point during our photo sessions, but like I say, that was the best time of my life.